He complained about my flowers, now he has a meadow. My neighbor, let's call him Mr. Grumbles, was the bane of our street. Constantly complaining about everything: my kids playing, my dog barking, even the color of my flowers. He'd call the HOA, leave nasty notes, the whole 9 yards. We tried to be nice, but nothing worked. He was just miserable. Then, he started targeting my garden. I'm a passionate gardener, it's my happy place. He'd sneak over at night and spray weed killer on my prize-winning roses, or prune my hydrangeas into stumps. I was devastated. I tried putting up a fence, but he complained that it was unsightly. I even tried talking to him, but he just sneered and told me I had no taste. I was at my wit's end. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, constantly worried about what he'd do next. Then, one day, I had an idea. A slightly mischievous, but ultimately satisfying idea. Mr. Grumbles was obsessed with his perfect lawn. It was his pride and joy. He'd spend hours meticulously mowing it, fertilizing it, and weeding it. It was the only thing he seemed to care about. So, I decided to help him out. I bought a bag of wildflower seeds. The kind that attract butterflies and bees. Beautiful, but definitely not. A perfectly manicured lawn. Every night, for a week, I'd sneak over to his yard and sprinkle a few seeds. Just a little bit here and there. I made sure to target the areas closest to his house, so he'd have a nice view. Then, I waited. It wasn't long before the wildflowers started to sprout. Probably thought it was just weeds, but then, they started to bloom. Bright, colorful wildflowers everywhere. His perfectly green lawn was now a vibrant meadow. It was beautiful, but I knew he'd hate it, and I was right. I watched from my window as he came out one morning, coffee in hand, and saw his lawn. His face turned bright red. He stormed back inside, and I could hear him yelling. He spent the next few days trying to get rid of the wildflowers, but they were persistent. They just kept coming back. Eventually, he gave up. His perfect lawn was ruined, but here's the thing. Something unexpected happened. He started change. He seemed less grumpy. He even started smiling at me and my kids. I think the wildflowers softened him somehow. Maybe he realized that a little bit of wildness isn't so bad after all. He still complains occasionally, but it's not as mean-spirited. And his lawn, it's still a wildflower meadow. And honestly, it looks much better than it ever did before. So, yeah, I guess you could say I got my revenge. But in the end, it wasn't really about revenge. It was about teaching him a lesson, and maybe, just maybe, bringing a little bit of joy into his life, even if he doesn't realize it.